Let's go rolling in with head men's basketball coach Josh Schertz for our weekly report. First one of the season, Coach, and we got a lot to talk about. Obviously, you had 2 games this past weekend. We'll start with the first. Went over to Bristol for the Conference Carolina Sack Challenge. Faced King, a team that we've become very familiar with the last few years. Come away with an 83-69 loss. First half played to a 40-40 draw, and then the second half it just kind of got away from us both offensively and defensively. Just talk about that game.
Well, I thought, first, I thought King played fantastic. Hats off to them. I thought their unselfishness, their ball movement, their juice, their competitiveness was far greater than ours. I think they respected the game, approached the right way. They were rewarded for it, and so in that sense, it's always, I was happy for them that they were rewarded for playing well. I thought on our end, it was probably the opposite extreme. Guys should be embarrassed by the performance, not because we lost. That has nothing to do with it. You're going to lose games. You're going to play well and lose. It's there's a way to play the game though, and there's a way to respect the game and go about playing the game, and we didn't do that, and our loss was really, like I said, twofold. One, great credit to King, played terrific basketball. On our end, I thought we came out and were very lethargic, and even in the first half we were up. It was kind of, we never got comfortable. Thought we got whipped on the glass by a team that it will not be a great rebounding team. It wasn't it wasn't they were bigger or more athletic or quicker. It was simply a fact that they went after it harder, ripped balls out of our hands. They were certainly the more determined, tougher team. We were very loose, very soft, and like I said, got balls taken away from us, didn't check out. They were kind of swarming, and we were all night on our heels. So we got what we deserved. They got what they deserved, and now you have to hopefully, when you get exposed, do you learn and grow from it, or do you try to blow smoke and make it like it's something it's not. So we'll see how we respond to that.
Well, and then you had to turn around quickly. Couldn't really dwell on it too much because the next day you played like less than 12 hours later. Really, you're back on the court at noon to play Lees McRae. And, I talked to you after the King game, and it seemed like you had really wanted to emphasize getting back the principles and the intensity defensively. And at least in the first half, you did that against Lees McRae. The first half really limited them, and then in the second half, they scored 51 points, but there were some positives in the half. The game, the big thing was seeing Laquan Choice break out, end up coming away with a 94-77 win. So talk about that one.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we played basically a little more than half of a half against Lees McRae with the proper level of intensity and force and focus, and I think guys were, to their credit, they were embarrassed about. Again, not embarrassed about losing to King. There's no embarrassment in that. They were embarrassed in how they performed, and their level of competitiveness and what they brought to the table. So I think for the most of the first half, probably 12 to 15 minutes, we competed at a good level. When you looked at the halftime stats, it looked more like what we've seen over the years. We held them to 31% shooting and 26 points, and I think we were plus 8-9 on the backboards, and then we talked at halftime about trying to build on that and not getting complacent, because I think that's obviously when you look at our team, the biggest issue you have. We didn't become a bad defensive team. We have a lot of guys back from last year, a team that led the country in field goal defense and 3-point defense, and was one of the top rebounding teams in the country, and that's been kind of the foundation of our program has always been, defense, rebounding, and doing those tough things. When you look at what kind of happened and against King, it's really an energy thing, a focus thing, an attention to detail thing. We talked at halftime at Lees McRae about now we got to sustain it, and we went on the second half, and I thought from a defensive standpoint it was really poor. We gave up 50% shooting. Gave up 20 free throws, gave up 51 points, allowed them to really kind of get downhill. They've had some good offensive players, certainly. Laprice Lynch, Austin Anderson, those guys. Steve's got a nice team over there at Lees McRae, but to give up that many points and I thought just relaxed, and relief is the worst the worst emotion you can have in sports. And so really when you look at it, in 80 minutes, we probably played about 15 minutes of legitimate basketball, and 65 where we just weren't there. So that's something we got to address. And I do agree with you. You know, Luquan making shots was a welcome sight for everybody. And thank God he did, because, you know, if we don't get 94, you're probably not winning that game. You know, you're giving up. You know, we have 77, so we needed to score 78 to get the job done, which is too many. But it was good to see Lou make some shots. It was good to see Jarrell kind of the last 10, 12 minutes start to kind of settle in. Emmanuel Terry had some good moments. I mean, offensively, I think we got similar shots both nights. I think the first night they didn't go in. The second night we made them. And I thought our issues that we have were the same for the most part on both nights.
Well, and, we talked about this before in the season preview about how, this is a new team, a new story, and part of it might be the gelling process. How much do you think, because a lot of people talk about, you got to find that chemistry on the offensive side, but I think that goes for the defensive side as well. You've got new pieces in, you've got Jalen Still, Emmanuel Terry's playing increased minutes, and you got other guys. Tim Taylor was thrust into an early role too. So how much do you think some of the stuff over this weekend was a factor of just, it's early in the season, we're still developing that chemistry, playing together in real game action?
Well, I think there's a part of it. I think there's always a perception, when you have expectations placed on you based on past history, that things are going to be a seamless transition. The reality is, we're starting a sophomore, Emmanuel Terry, that averaged 8 minutes a game last year. We're starting a sophomore, Dorian Pinson. We're playing in our rotation, a freshman Nixon Blanc, a freshman Timmy Taylor. It's not always a seamless transition. So I think there's certainly an aspect of that's very accurate. I think the bigger picture is, is have we lost our edge? Have we gotten complacent? Have we allowed past success? Are we living in what we did? Are we looking forward to what we're going to do? For the seniors, they've got 4 championship rings. They've got 3 regular season titles, a tournament title. Are they hungry to get more? They look at it and go, hey, 4 is pretty good. We have 4 more than a lot of people get in a career. So a lot of it's going to be based on. I think the majority of our issue is, can we maintain our edge? And well, we got to get an edge right now. I don't think we've had one most of this preseason into our season, and I've kind of rung that bell with these guys, and it hasn't gotten through. Maybe the King game did, but then you would say we got up 17 at half on Lees McRae, and then we fell back into bad habits. So what are we going to do to be able to be successful moving forward? Because as you play better teams, really when you boil basketball down, it comes down to the team that competes and executes the best over 40 minutes. That's how you win games. And when you're playing other really good teams, that's how you win. You got to compete and execute the best over a 40-minute window, and you got to be able to sustain it. So we haven't shown any of those things. So I think there's some acclimation where we have to get guys, into what we're doing and understanding what we're doing. We got some new players we're trying to fit in, but I think probably the crux of our issue right now is a little bit of complacency, lethargy, a little bit of entitlement that we have to eradicate if we're gonna, have a chance to be any good. Because you can't win if you're an eye over team. You can't win if you're a team that you got to kind of coax to work hard every day, and so you're toast if that's the case. So I'm interested to see how we respond. Like I said, I think we saw in a spurt that we can still do it. But we weren't able to sustain it. In the King game, I think they came ready for a fist fight. We came ready for a friendly exhibition, and we got knocked on our butts, and we were out rebounded 10. And so people say, well, we shot, our starting guard shot 7 for 29. Well, that had nothing to do with it. I told the guys last year we played King, and we scored 70, and this year we scored 69. So the difference was in 14-15, we held them to 63, out-rebounded them by 13. This year, they score 83. We get out-rebounded by 10. They get all the second chance, all the loose balls. We have lapses defensively, and they're good enough. They make you pay. C.J. Good goes 6 for 6 from 3 in the second half, but a lot of those were on defensive breakdowns where we lost them or weren't close enough or didn't have high hands or whatever the case may be. Against an elite shooter, you have those breakdowns that are going to make you pay.
Well, now you begin a stretch with 5 of your next 6 at home, and then the Southland Conference schedule gets kicked off really quick here. But first, we pay our attention to Hiwassee coming in here for the Tex Turner Arena opener on Thursday. Hiwassee, obviously a team that we've had on the schedule from time to time, and we usually handle, but it's one of those games where you have an opportunity to play a lot of guys, mix up your lineups, and try to get that cohesiveness and to really get a lot of guys' confidence up.
Yeah, and there's no question. I think we've played Hiwassee over the years. Will's done a good job with them. They just went and played last night down at Tennessee. Chattanooga, I think, lost by 30-some, 37, 38, something like that, down there at UTC. He's got a good team. They're scrappy. They're a little undersized, but they compete. They play hard. And I told the guys, to me, this week is primarily about us. And so us getting better, us improving, us making strides, because if we don't go out and compete, execute Thursday night, you can get beat, and that's one thing we've talked about since I've been here is appropriate fear. And appropriate fear, obviously, is not being scared, but it's also understanding that anything can happen in a competitive situation, respecting the game, respecting your opponent, and making sure that you're preparing to try to play the best you can, understand that anything can happen. So hopefully, our guys will come out with the proper mindset. I think, I'm interested to see, as everybody else is, because that's ultimately where we got to get to. Because once you move forward from Hiwassee with the schedule we have upcoming, and to me, you could play your best and still get beat sometimes. And if you're not at your best, you got no chance. The way our schedule breaks, how good the league is, what our non-conference schedule is. So there's not going to be a whole lot of nights where you say, we can come out here and not play our best and get one done. That's not going to be the case. So we've got to worry about us this week. And I want to see a team that goes out and competes and executes and really sustains it for a 40-minute window, because we haven't shown that, at all. So that would be our challenge, and it wouldn't matter if it was Hiwassee or whoever. I think this is about us, and about us making some steps forward.
Well, and you had mentioned the league, because then the conference play starts on next Tuesday, and we'll talk again before then. But we had talked in the preseason that the conference was going to be a beast, and it was certainly validated this weekend when we saw some of the results around the conference. So we know going into it that it was going to be challenging. It seems like it's going to be even a bigger bear than it was from the start.
Yeah, it's. I thought it was going to be the best it's ever been, and I think there was no question. It's outstanding, and I'm not totally surprised. But you look at Lenore Ryan coming in, beating Pembroke. They're coming off double overtime loss to Clemson. They've got a transfer point guard I haven't seen yet, but is 36, 9, and 8 in his opener, and so you're talking about somebody special there with a lot of guys back. I think you look at Coker coming out, getting 2 wins, Wingate. You and I talked in the preseason. I said they had the best freshman I'd ever seen come in the league, and Mike Baez. I think he averaged 23 and 11 his first 2 games as a freshman. So I'm not surprised by it. I think it's going to be exceptional. Carson Newman and us kind of stubbed our toe this weekend. I think theirs was a little more validity to it. Josh Rogers was hurt for them, and then Charles Clark fouled out in 20 some minutes. So they don't have probably the depth right now to absorb those type of things happening. But their starting 5 is as good as anybody in the region, and when they're healthy and got that group together, they're going to be as good as anybody in our region. So the league from top to bottom, Queens came out and won 2 games, and against the Peach Belt, and so it's going to be relentless, and that's where you have to get to the point where you can't focus big picture. You got to just take it day by day and try to continue to grow and get better, because if you don't, you got no chance against these teams. And that's what we're talking about. If you got to play your best to have a chance, and knowing some nights your best may not be good enough, but certainly knowing that if you're not at your best, it's a wipeout. So that's where we got to get to. We've got to really ramp up our ability to execute. We got to ramp up our ability to compete. And if those 2 things improve, I think we have a good enough team that we can certainly be one of those teams in the mix. If we don't, then this is there's no chance for us. The competition's too strong.